The modern English that we enjoy today is based on the Middle English spoken by the French and Anglo-Saxons. The English that used to be the language of the peasants became the widely spoken language in the world. How had the changes come about? In 1066, William the Conqueror, who was formerly Duke of Normandy and later William I of England, invaded the island of Britain from his home base in northern France. During the French rule, Anglo-Norman French became the language of the kings and nobility of England for more than 300 years. King Henry IV was the first monarch to have English as his mother tongue. While Anglo-Norman was the verbal language of the court, administration, and culture, Latin was mostly used for written language, especially by the church and in official records. The uneducated peasantry and lower classes, who composed the vast majority or 95% of the population, continued to speak English, which was considered by the Normans a low-class, vulgar tongue. The two languages, English and Anglo-Norman, developed in parallel, only gradually merging as Normans and Anglo-Saxons began to intermarry. It is this mixture of Old English and Anglo-Norman that is usually referred to as Middle English. French greatly influenced the English language, for it bequeathed over 10,000 words. During the reign of King Henry II and his queen, Eleanor of Aquitaine, in the second half of the 12th century, many more Frisian words from central France were imported in addition to their Anglo-Norman counterparts. English as a language during the Norman rule centuries had no official status and no regulation. English had become the third language in its own country. It was largely spoken rather than written language, and effectively sank to the level of patois or Creole. It is estimated that up to 85% of Anglo-Saxon words were lost, and at one point, the very existence of the English language looked to be in dire peril. But despite the shake-up the Normans had given English, it showed its resilience once again, and 200 years after the Norman conquest, it was English, not French, that emerged as the language of England. The English of necessity had become Normanized, but over time, the Normans also became Anglicized. Norman French began gradually to degenerate. While few in England spoke French and few spoke Latin, everyone from the highest to the lowest spoke English, and it gradually became the lingua franca of the nation once again. The 100 Years' War against France had the effect of branding the French as the language of the enemy, and the status of English rose. After the Black Death, the linguistic division between the nobility and the commoners was largely over. English was made the official language of the courts and parliament in 1362. Edward III became the first king to address parliament in English. By 1385, English had become the language of instruction in schools. As I look into the history of the English language, I realize the adverse and positive effects of how the speakers use a language. Language can make us feel weak or superior. To serve its purpose, language should be used to praise and not to degrade. It should be used to appreciate and not to condemn. We must use our language to support others and not to destroy. Just as the speakers of the English language had been resilient despite conquest and threat, we should do the same. Languages change by borrowing from other languages. This reminds us of our interdependence.